You're listening to the Fierce Fanny Podcast, episode 129. Health is a social construct. I'm your host, Vinnie Wellsby. Let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Wellsby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Hello, Fatty. Welcome to this episode. How are you? How's life? You doing good? I realize that I have not ever done a land acknowledgement for the podcast. I'm thinking about the new podcast intro music, whatever. I need to change it because it's got my old name in it. And in that, I'm going to put a land acknowledgement. But just an FYI, you may know that I live in Canada, in Vancouver, which is the traditional, ancestral and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam nations. Yes, so that's where I live. And I've been thinking about this and how it needs to be part of every episode. So I thought in the intro would be great. That's what I'm going to put in. So anyway, that's the First Nations community lands here that I live on in what is currently known as Vancouver. So today I am talking about health. And I'm doing this episode because someone asked me to, and I was like, that's a great idea. You clever lot. You know what, because I forget what I talk about, and I forget what episodes I've done and not done, and I know that I've talked about health being a social construct before, but I looked and I was like, well shit, I've never even done an episode on it, like episode dedicated to it, because I had shared a post on the Instagrams and someone said, oh, you should do an episode focusing on this. And the post that I shared was the social determinants of health. This is the caption that I wrote. There are so many things that influence health, and most are not in our control. Weight is not a behavior, and it is not in our control for the vast majority of people. The moralistic value that society places on, quote, healthy bodies is ableism, healthism, and not helpful for anyone. Health is largely a social justice issue. Health is not attainable for many. Healthy is a temporary state. Health is a social construct. Yeah, and someone left a comment saying, you need to talk about that more. And I said in my brain, you got it. I'm gonna do it because you know what? Sometimes I like these points that I think that I've made because I've spoken about them like briefly on the podcast in different posts and whatever. And really, actually, have I spoken about them? Have I made an episode so someone can Google health as a social construct and find my stuff? No, I haven't. No. So yeah. Today's Friday. Feeling good. Dougie just got back from a spa day. Dougie the dog, he has had his hair cut for the first time in his whole life, actually. Well, I've cut his hair before, but professionally, I mean. He went to the groomer for the first time, and normally I just groom him myself, but something good that happened in the pandemic was that Dougie had to go into the vet on his own obviously I drove him there. He didn't just, make an appointment himself and go. I would drive him there and then pass him on to the vet because COVID meant I wasn't allowed in. And they reported back saying, he's an angel when you're not there. So this motherfucker's been going around growling and snapping at people. He doesn't bite, he just snaps, which is scary though, right? And he's a little dog, but he's still scary. And seems to be really stressed out. And so I was like, well, I can't ever take him to the groomer because he's just gonna, one, like scare the groomer, and two, he's gonna be really upset and terrified. Yeah, and the vets are like, yeah, no, he's fine. He's like wanting cuddles, and I was like, you tricky little motherfucker. So I made an appointment for him to go to the groomers. We just started it out last week with just a little nail clip just to see how he liked it, and he didn't want to leave afterwards. Yeah, so I had to go and go grab him because the groomers is just half a block away, and she was going to take him back. But anyway, he didn't want to leave, and today he's gone for the full spa treatment, and now he looks like a fucking teddy bear. He's so cute. I want to murder him because he looks so cute. His little bum, because normally he has what I call his skirt on the back because he has really long hair, and I was like, that needs to go, and they made it into like a teddy bear bum. And so he might be murdered by the end of the day because I'm going to be loving on him so much because he looks so cute. So if your dog is, I don't know, like Dougie, maybe they're just doing it when you're around. Maybe not, who knows. And I can't tell for sure he enjoyed it, but I'm guessing he did because he seemed pretty happy and excited. So, yes. Okay, so talking about this today, health is a social construct. I'm going to just define what is health and what is social construct. What do they mean? And then get into the concept of health being a social construct, and that related to fatness and ableism and healthism and all that type of jazz. So if we Google health, if we just did a little Google, which I did, and the word health is a noun and the state of being free from illness or injury, or a person's mental or physical condition. And that's pretty limited, right? So that's a dictionary definition. So being free from illness or injury. But we have other definitions. And so this is from the government of Canada, who is quoting the World Health Organization, who says, the World Health Organization offers a simple definition of health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Social well-being is an important aspect of this definition that may not always occur to us in thinking about health. So, what does that mean? What does that mean? A state of complete physical, mental, social well-being. A state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. So, well-beingness is what WHO says it is. Okay, so well-beingness, or if we look at the simple definition, being free from illness or injury. Okay, so social construct. So let's look at the dictionary definition. And Merriam-Webster says that it is an idea that has been created and accepted by the people in a society. So an idea that has been created and accepted by the people in a society. Well, I hear you. Isn't that everything? Yeah, it's a lot of things. So what is a social construct? We're going to go to another site that gives us some examples. And so this is what they say. Social constructs develop within a society or group. They don't represent objective reality, but instead are meaningful only because people within the society or group accept that they have meaning. Simply put, social constructs do not have inherent meaning. The only meaning they have is the meaning given to them by people. For example, the idea that pink is for girls and blue is for boys is an example of a social construct related to gender and the colour of items. The collective perception that a particular colour can be associated with a certain gender is not an objective representation of truth or fact. Instead, it is a social convention that came to have meaning within the context of society. And so they go on to list some examples. There are many examples of social constructs. Most common practices and behaviours that are generally accepted within a society or group represent social constructs. These societal norms don't have to be accepted by every single person in order to be social constructs. They can, and often do, change over time. So some examples here. There's lots of different examples, but I'm just going to read out the ones which are related more to what we're talking about today. So adulthood. The specific of when a person is considered to be an adult is a social construct. In the United States and most of the EU, people are considered to be adults at the age of 18. However, in Scotland, people are considered to be adults at the age of 16. And in reality, if we're talking about reality, if we were to define adulthood as the time where our brains are more developed, where we are at a certain level of maturity, then it will probably actually be 25. But then we have to think about, like, well, do we let people who are under 25 do stuff even though maybe their brains aren't totally fully developed? Well, yeah. And so it's kind of like, well, we have to come to a decision about what being an adult means by society's standards. And I mean, I think, for some things I think it's appropriate to say 16 or 18, but other things I think maybe not. So gender behaviours. The concept of certain behaviours being specific to a person's gender is a social construct. This applies to the idea that men should keep their emotions bottled up, or the notion that women are overly emotional. It also applies to the belief that boys should play with trucks and girls with dolls. Gender roles. There are also social constructs associated with gender roles, such as formerly widely held belief that women should stay at home and men should work. This also relates to the belief that certain types of jobs are women's work, while others represent men's work. Disability. The concept of disability is a social construct. The social construct of disability often relates to visible indicators of disability, such as using a wheelchair or missing a limb. People who have less visible disabilities are often misunderstood because their conditions don't fit into the social constructs of others. Like, you hear many stories of people parking in the disabled spot and someone rushing out being like, this is for disabled people, because they're not in a wheelchair, and then the person being like, well, and they take their leg off or whatever to reveal that they're using a leg to help them walk, or they have a disability which is not visible. It gets on my tits. That really gets on my tits when people are saying, you can't use that washroom because it's for disabled people. It's like, well, how can you tell with your eyeballs that someone is disabled or not? It's none of your fucking business. But I can see why people do that, because they want to protect disabled people. But in that, they're harming disabled people. Yes. And if we think about, with disability, if we think about glasses wearers, you wouldn't, if you wore glasses, probably describe yourself as having a disability. Whereas maybe a few hundred years ago, before we were able to access glasses, or I don't know when glasses were invented. I know sunglasses were invented a really long time ago. Yeah, so then if you, depending on the level of sight, that would be a disability. So like, if I didn't have my glasses, I couldn't drive. I sometimes struggled to get around. My mum, it really has very limited vision without her glasses, and she could barely get around the room, and so then that would be classed as a disability. But now this aid that I have, that I wear, glasses, are seen as cool, right? Not everyone thinks they're cool. I do, but it's just no big deal. You wouldn't think, oh, look, that's that person's disabled because they're wearing glasses. It's just a normal thing, and that's a social construct to say that wearing glasses is not a disability, whereas using a wheelchair or a mobility aid is a disability. And so some folks with disabilities don't see themselves as disabled, and some do. It's, disabled people are not a monolith, but anyway, it's a social construct is what we're talking about, and some people buy into that construct and some people don't. Illness is also a social construct. The word illness doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. Some only perceive medical conditions as illnesses if they would cause a person to be, I don't like this word, bedridden. I don't like that. That's like a negative thing. To be in bed or contagious, while others perceive a wide variety of medical circumstances to represent illness. Yeah, so for example, illness, and let's extend this to health. I've used this example before, but one time that really made me think about this was going to the doctors and had like an annual checkup or whatever, had my blood work done, and the doctor says, "You are absolutely healthy," as she handed my script for all the different various things, like medication I need to take to make sure that I can live. I won't die without the medications. Well, no, maybe I probably would. But she's saying I am healthy, but am I healthy? Is the way that I and she is perceiving these conditions, because they are somewhat easily remedied with medication, means that they are no longer a barrier to so-called health status, a health status. But then if I don't know, I didn't have access to medication, or couldn't afford to pay for medication because I have to pay for my medication in Canada, would then I not be healthy? Is health only for those who are able to manage their health condition? Does that then make someone healthy or unhealthy? Like, am I healthy because I can take antidepressants that make my depression symptoms mostly go away? Does that then mean I'm healthy? But then you might say yes, but then if a week I didn't take my antidepressants, then maybe then I would not. But the difference is between me medicating it or not. So it's what what it's complicated, right? It is complicated. Okay, the last example of a social construct here that they're giving is time. Time is a social construct. It is meaningful only in the context of human-created systems that are used to describe time, seconds, minutes, hours, and make it meaningful. In some places, daylight savings time is not observed. Oh, I want to be in one of those places. The concept of seasonal time changes does not exist where they are not practiced. Yeah, we need to get rid of daylight savings. That shit's silly. We're not farming anymore. Anyway, so other examples of social constructs: money, government. They mentioned gender here. So it's anything that which is not a fact. I would argue that how much of stuff is factual. It's as factual as we know it according to science today, right? And that's the thing is, like scientists will always say, like, this is the best we know today. And so with a lot of things, like, it's pretty much very well established, certain things, but other things, we've just kind of made it up, and everyone said, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Even though maybe at the time it sounded about right. Women have to stay in the home, men have to do this, and men's personality traits are this, and all that type of stuff may have worked. I mean, did it ever work? No, but maybe it may have been more relevant 200 years ago, but it's no longer search. So, it could change. In 200 years, we might be like, LOL. Remember in the olden days when they used to think that women should stay at home. So yeah. Also, let's just finish off this here for this bit. By the way, links in the show notes. This is episode 129, so fiercefactory.com/129. Finishing off this little bit is expanding your understanding of social constructs involved considering which of the things that you know actually have objective meaning versus which ones are meaningful only because people in a group assign meaning to them and continue to allow that assigned meaning to persist. Explore your perceptions versus those of others by reviewing some examples of sociological imagination. This will allow you to consider situations from other points of view and will come to appreciate perspectives other than your own. So another example is religion. So this line here, they're saying people in a group assign meaning to them and continue to allow that assigned meaning to persist. And so I'm watching something on Netflix. I started watching it last night about the Mormon group that's led by Jeff. What's his name? They are called the Latter-day Saints of Fundamental Latter-day Saints, FLDS. Anyway, religious group, very conservative. And they had the prophet, which was this guy Jeff's dad, and the prophet was meant to live forever because he was a prophet, and oopsie, he died. And so they were like, what the heck, we thought the prophet was going to live forever. And so then the son was like, they had how many children did this guy have, because they believe in plural marriages. This guy had like hundreds of children, and so one of the favorite sons, who was said to be magical in some way, was like, turns out dad's come back, he's in my body now and I'm the prophet. And so then the group had to get behind that idea, and anyone who was a threat to the idea that this guy Jeff was actually the prophet reincarnated, the dad reincarnated in his body, were ousted. And then that became, the new group belief that the prophet had reincarnated into the son's body, and that you had to do certain things and wear your hair in a certain way and wear underwear down to your ankles and up to your wrists and la 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 la, because that's what they all believed, right? And still believe. So let's look at sociology, because we can also look at this from a sociological frame. And I'm looking at the social construction of health from OpenText BC, which is open text of a sociology course. And so I'm going to read a few quotes from here. So, medical sociology is the systematic study of how humans manage issues of health and illness, disease and disorders, and healthcare for both the sick and the healthy. The social construction of health explains how society shapes and is shaped by medical issues. The social construction of health is a major research topic within medical sociology. At first glance, the concept of a social construction of health does not seem to make sense. After all, if disease is measurable physiological problem, then there can be no question of socially constructing disease, right? Well, it's not that simple. The idea of the social construction of health emphasizes the socio-cultural aspects of the discipline's approach to physical, objective, definable phenomena. Sociologists Conrad and Barker, 2010, offer a comprehensive framework for understanding the major findings of the last 50 years of development in this concept. Their summary categorizes the findings in the field under three subheadings: the cultural meaning of illness, the social construction of the illness experience, and the social construction of medical knowledge. Many medical sociologists contend that illness has both a biological and an experiential component, and that these components exist independently of each other. Our culture, not our biology, dictates which illnesses are stigmatized and which are not, which are considered disabilities and which are not, and which are deemed contestable, meaning some medical professionals may find the existence of this ailment questionable, opposed to definitive illnesses that are unquestionably recognized in the medical profession. Conrad and Barker, 2010. For instance, sociologist Irving Goffman, 1963, described how social stigmas hinder individuals from fully integrating into society. In essence, Goffman suggests we might view illness as a stigma that can push others to view the ill in an undesirable manner. The stigmatization of illness often has the greatest effect on the patient and the kind of care they receive. Many contend that our society and even our healthcare institutions discriminate against certain diseases like mental disorders, AIDS, venereal diseases, and skin disorders. I think I don't think you say VD anymore. And that's from Sartorius, 2007. Facilities for these diseases may be subpar, they may be segregated from other healthcare areas, or relegated to a poorer environment. The stigma may keep people from seeking help for their illnesses, making it worse than it needs to be. So if you want to learn more about like the sociological side of looking at that and how we view conditions and how doctors or healthcare professionals view conditions, then there's that whole field of study that's been going on for a very long time, because health is a social construct. Because it's not just, as we're saying in this bit I just read out, it's not just this definable thing. It's something that changes depending on how society and individuals who adhere to the social constructs in society interact with health and what they think health is, and different types of illness and conditions, etc., etc. So I like to think about this concept and the construct of health in regards to health as a destination and health as a status and its influences. And so what I'm talking about when I say health as a destination, thinking about how society views health as something that you can arrive at, like it's the terminus station, and that if you do certain things then you're going to arrive. Just hop on the health train and we're going to get to that station, and the station is called health. And if you maintain taking certain actions, and those actions being thin, exercising, and eating the quote right food, then you're going to get to that destination of health, is what largely we believe in society, and what kind of the everyday person believes. And it boils down to it boils health down to a very simple and limited equation or definition. You know, like you get your luggage. You got your luggage, which is eating right, exercising right, and being thin. Now we can jump on the train, and the train is going to get us to the destination of health. So that's a construct. In regards to that is what many of us in society have decided is the reality of what health is. And yes, there's some nuance in there, like I'm boiling it down to the very simplest ideas, but people were like, oh yeah, you do need to also get a good night's sleep and drink water and all of those types of things, and or maybe you should do some yoga as well. We want to be holistic about it, but then we can jump on that train and maybe the train might hit some leaves on the ground, like happens in the UK, leaves on the track, and it needs to maybe there's a little stop or a delay, but basically we've got the luggage, the inputs are there, therefore we know that health is going to be the outcome. And that's just not the reality, right? That's just not the reality. So when we think about health as a destination, something that you can input stuff, you're going to arrive at, there might be a little bit of things that might pop up from time to time that is out of your control, but you've done the quote right things, therefore you're going to get to the destination, or you're at the destination, you're going to stay at the destination. So this concept and the construct of this is, it says that health or lack of health is totally down to an individual and what they do, what control they have. Because why would someone not be healthy when it's so easy? All you need to do is eat, quote, right, exercise, and be thin. Easy peasy, lemon and lime. So you've got this choice to be healthy. Why wouldn't you do it if it's so easy? And the reason is because people who decide, quote, decide to be unhealthy, they're bad in some way. They are lazy or unintelligent or poor. And it says if you get sick with some things, then it's okay. But something else, that's a moral failing. So an example, if you get sick or you have an illness, injury, because you're doing something that supports the idea that health is being thin, exercising and eating right, and you come up against something that means that you get an illness, an injury from that, then that's good. That's okay. But if it's outside of that, then it's not good. Okay, so an example would be an injury that I have had is I went skiing. I used to go skiing all the time. Fell, tore a couple of ligaments in my knee, and I needed surgery. Had time off work, but never once did I think or come into the kind of like, oh well, if you weren't so much of a skier, you never would have encountered that. Well, it's your own fault for skiing. No, because I was doing an activity. I was exercising. Therefore, I was being a good fatty. I was doing the things that I needed to do according to this construct that we have currently around health, the things I needed to do to be at that destination of healthy. But what if someone is diagnosed with something that we associate with fatness, and they're a fat person? For example, the classic one is type 2 diabetes. And what we know about type 2 diabetes is it is predominantly a genetic condition, and that you cannot eat your way into getting diabetes. It is not anyone's fault if they have type 2 diabetes. But that is not the message that we get. It's inevitable because you did something bad, which is being fat. You weren't doing the things, you weren't adhering to the inputs, being thin, eating the right foods and exercising. So therefore you are not going to arrive at the destination of health. And the idea that, when a thin person gets sick, that's just the way the life is. Maybe they were unlucky. It wasn't because of something they did or didn't do. But when a fat person gets sick, it's because they're fat. What can we expect? Is what society says. So, and then outside of fatness, if we think about fatness, we have other things which are something that's seen as good or bad. So say if you got, you had the flu, that's fine. No stigma around that. Maybe, people don't want you to go make out with them if they've got the flu, but people are not like, oh, what type of person gets the flu? Whereas say if you got an STD, you had syphilis, well then that's bad, that's shameful. But both are equally morally the same, engaging probably in similar types of behavior, contact with other human beings. So then why is one devastatingly shameful potentially for people and stigmatized, but the other is just part of being a human being? And that is because we view health in a certain way, right? This also, the definition of, the idea of health as a destination, it positions fat people as being so willfully ignorant of the very easy health formula. And according to this, fat people, we stick our fingers in our ears and are determined to make other people and the government pay for our recklessness. The formula is so simple. Why don't you just do it? Then you'd be healthy, is what we know about this version of health. And the answer to that is because, isn't it? That's not the reality. This construction of health that we currently have in society is almost exclusively focused on physical health. And it's super laced with white supremacy and ideas from white culture of what health is. And I'm going to be talking about First Nations ideas about health shortly to show how different it can be. Their constructs around health. It also denies, that the holistic way, many cultures think about health. Not even just some First Nation cultures. Many cultures, like this is a very Western, American view of what health is. And in many cultures, right? But then also in many cultures is different. But this is our perception. This is our perception of what health is, and differences sometimes can even be hard to imagine, because we all know if you do this and that, then you're going to be healthy probably. It also implies health is a choice and denigrates those who do not, quote, choose health. It disregards those who can never be healthy or able-bodied and leaves them at the sidelines as second-class citizens. You're disabled? Well, sorry. SOL. And it's all about how people view your health, which in turn affects your health negatively, right? It's, if you were on a desert island and you got type 2 diabetes, you and your doctor are on the desert island together, and the doctor says, sorry, you got type 2 diabetes. Would it seem as devastating if you didn't have anyone to judge you? If you didn't have anyone to view or make assumptions about who you were as a person? It would probably be a lot easier to deal with because of the way that society views certain conditions. And what if we removed shame from health? What if we did remove all of that kind of learned shame from health? We might go to the doctors more. We might be connected with the community more because we realize that we have more health conditions in common. I tell you, I bet the health condition that you feel shameful about, loads of other people have it, and because no one's talking about it, we feel shame, and it's like, oh, well, actually, who knew that Brad Pitt has HSV, genital herpes? Oh, well, if Brad Pitt came out and said, hey, I have genital herpes, maybe we wouldn't be viewing it so negatively, as an example. I need to get a new fucking, I always say Brad Pitt. I think it's showing that, I don't think the kids are talking about Brad Pitt as in the most like the idol of celebrities nowadays. I need to get like a new one. No, Hugh Jackman. No, he's like, I bet you the kids would be like, oh, Brad Pitt's like an old man or something. Something. When in my mind, like Brad Pitt is the epitome of hunky Hollywood celebrity. I don't know. I don't even know. Yeah. So if we remove that shame, then we'd also probably get better treatment. We wouldn't be shy about talking about sexual health and other types of health, which would protect our health and other people's health. Yeah. So let's look at the health as a status and what influences health. So if you think about society, you think of how society thinks of what makes someone healthy, is that thin, exercise, eating healthy food. And in reality, it's way more complex and is influenced by the social constructs we have in place currently. Let me repeat that. Health is super complex and is influenced by the social constructs we have in place currently. Health is influenced by the way we view health. And so I have a post that I first created a few years ago, but then I reshared it recently on Instagram, and it is the social determinants of the determinants of health. And so you can go and look at. I'll also put in the show notes So I've summarized it down into the big components. Okay, so I'll read them out. Okay, so we've got in our mind that if you're thin, you eat the right food, you exercise, maybe a sprinkling of some other things. Things that are in your control and maybe a little bit of genetics, then you'll be healthy. But really, the determinants of health, 2/3 of it is not our behavior. 2/3 of it is other things. And so 24% is social circumstances, 22% is genetics and biology, 11% medical care, 7% environment, and 36% individual behavior. And so individual behavior, okay, so that is eating the right food, being thin, and exercising, isn't it? ? No, not necessarily. Okay, so in individual behavior, so the if you go to the where I got this information from, it's this huge thing that you could not fit on Instagram, and so I've summarized it to the main points, and then the main points are then go into other points of what that means. So individual behavior, psychological assets, negative mood and affects, other risk-related behavior like gun behavior, sexual activity, motor vehicle behavior, physical activity, sleep patterns, and diet patterns. And when we think about diet patterns, is it that we're getting enough food? Do we get a variety of food, right? It's not, did you ever eat a Twinkie? You know, and so those two things are 6%, right? But hang on a minute, I thought it was simple. You just input this and then an output is the destination of health. So yeah, I mean, like when you think of individual health, are you thinking about, so negative mood and affects, and so that is anxiety level, depression level, hopelessness level, and stress level. Psychological assets, conscientiousness level, self-efficacy, optimism level, life satisfaction level, cognitive function in late life, risk-related behavior, gun behavior, sexual activity, motor vehicle behavior. So, you know, we're not saying, listen, I'm really interested in becoming healthy, so I am going to not go to the gun range next week. I doubt that there's a lot of people who are gun users listening to the show. But we don't think that, right? And that is like our individual behavior. Right? We're not like, you know what? I really want to be healthy. So I am going to work on my optimism level. And that's 36%, right? And so the other parts of what health are, so if we look at social circumstances, so if we go in deeper in that, is gender identity, military service, sexual orientation, citizenship status, race and ethnicity, social status, history of incarceration, culture and tradition, social connectedness, early childhood education and development, discrimination, work conditions. I am going to improve my health, and so I am going to make some more friends. We probably wouldn't say that, right? And each of these things has like lines underneath them, like religious involvement, cultural norms, quality of friends, civic participation. I really want to improve my health, so I'm going to engage in civic participation. Like what? But it's at this, it's part of what makes up health. And, these social circumstances are on par with all of these other things that we're talking about. So genetics and biology. So that includes genetic, body structure, body function. Oh, look at that. This is... look at this. Body structure is under genetics and biology, and that is weight. Notice how weight is not under a behavior. So, yeah. And so this information, by the way, this information is, let me read out a quote. The information in this pie chart is from GoInvo. 89% of health occurs outside of the clinical space through our genetics, behavior, environment, and social circumstances. These factors are known as the social determinants of health. Despite their importance, attempts to integrate the determinants into a single visualization have been limited because there's so many. GoInvo identify a gap based on their extensive work as a healthcare design studio and conducted a literature review of sources, the World Health Organization and the Kaiser Family Foundation, and face-to-face interviews with public policy analysts, health IT experts, and clinical professionals, relying on the experience of mapping complex systems within healthcare. GoInvo created a comprehensive open source visualization of the social determinants of health. So seeing all these different strands on this, there's many different things, right? Many different things. We also, medical care. So underneath that is health literacy, quality of healthcare, access to healthcare, patient engagement, distance to resources, provider availability, vaccinations and immunizations, quality of insurance, under physical environment, pollution, location, exposure to firearms, allergens, walkability, water quality, air quality, crime level, crowding conditions, job opportunities, right? So hang on, this doesn't align with what we view health as. The social construct we currently have of what health is. So someone's health status, which is a social construct, is going to be affected by the social constructs they come into. So example, because a part of the social circumstances affect health, right? So your gender identity, if you're gender diverse, then for example, trans folks average life expectancy is 30 to 35 years. If you're a black trans person, then it's even lower. And so we're thinking about gender identity and someone's health status, and then we also look at the social circumstances, someone's race. And then we can throw in there like sexual orientation if they're also queer, then it's going to affect their health outcomes. Because are they going to be able to, then we look at over the other things, we look at the medical care. Are they going to get quality of healthcare? Are they going to get access to healthcare? are they going to be able to engage with that healthcare? Right? So all of these things are playing off each other. And so the way that we perceive, as an example, transness in our society affects the health outcomes of trans folks. And even, people's perception of health and what health is, this is not universal. So, and it changes from individual to individual. Like, for example, experiences that we think are universal are not necessarily universal. If we think about the pain scale, like how much pain are you in from a scale of 1 to 10, which was developed by, who was the company? Basically, it was developed by a opioid manufacturing company so that people could be prescribed opioids more in hospital, because we couldn't be letting people stay in pain. We need to give them opioids. Anyway, pain scale. My perception of pain is different from other people's, and even like your own perception of your own health. My aunt, who lives next door to my mum, she's like 75 or something, and has not been to the doctor in anyone's recent memory. And she's hard of hearing, and she has signs of dementia, and she talks all the time about how healthy she is. And is she though? I don't know the answer to that. She walks her sheepdog for hours every day, all day, every day. She walks to the beach with her dog. She gets on with her life fine. Does my perception of her health and my perception of her age change her health status? What even is her health status? What if she does have some unchecked illness or condition? Does that then mean she's unhealthy? And what does my perception of her being unhealthy mean? And so my mum's perception of her being unhealthy in whatever way means that my mum who's 70, right? My mum who's 70 goes around and does gardening for her sister. She does the weeding and stuff. Even though the sister is absolutely capable of doing it, but because my mum perceives her as she hasn't gone to the doctor in many, many years, therefore she's probably sick, I must go around and do her weeding for her. And so then how then does that impact her health if people are perceiving her as unhealthy? I mean, she's happy for my mum to go around and do the weeding, but everyone went to her and said, listen, you need to go to the doctor. You've not been to the doctor in years. You're probably really unhealthy. You're probably about to die. Would that then actually affect her health? Which could be potentially A-okay. But then again, what is health? What is it? So let's look at, I'm just going to have a look at the First Nations perspective of health and wellness. And so again, link in the show notes. So this is from the First Nations Health Authority. It says health through wellness. And they've got a visual depiction of what health is. And what we have here is we've got like a bullet, like a target type shape. And in the middle, we have the word human being. And so the center circle represents individual human beings. Wellness starts with individuals taking responsibility for our own health and wellness, whether we are First Nations or not. The second circle illustrates the importance of mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical facets of a healthy, well-balanced life. It is critically important that there is balance between these aspects of wellness and that they are all nurtured together to create a holistic level of well-being in which all four areas are strong and healthy. The third circle, so this is going out from the middle. The third circle represents the overarching values that support and uphold wellness: respect, wisdom, responsibility, and relationships. All other values are in some way essential to the four below, which is respect, wisdom, responsibility, and relationships. And so then the fourth circle depicts the people that surround us and the places from which we come. Land, community, family, and nations are all critical components of our healthy experiences as human beings. And so the fifth circle depicts the social, environmental, cultural, and economic determinants of our health and well-being. And so, like, for example, cultural determinants include language, spirituality, ceremonies, traditional foods and medicines, teachings, and a sense of belonging. Environmental is land, air, water, food, housing, and other resources that need to be cared for and considered in order to sustain healthy children, family, and communities. And then we've got the outer circle, which is the people. People who make up the outer circle represent the vision of strong children, families, elders, and people in the community. The people are holding hands to demonstrate togetherness, respect, and relationships, which in the words of a respected BC elder can be stated as one heart, one mind. Children are included in the drawing because they are the heart of our communities and they connect us to who we are and to our health. So, see how it's different, right? And even like talking about the land and land being connected to, respect of the land connected to our health. And so that the way that most of us, if we're not a part of communities who have more diverse understandings of what health is and what contributes to health, we wouldn't think of these things, right? Because the construct of what health is to us, our perception is different. And because our perception is our perception, we view it as the right perception when it's just one way to view something, and there are actually many different ways to view something. And when we're viewing health as this limited black and white input output type of thing, it's ignoring the current information that we have about what health is. That construct of health is old fashioned, right? Like apple a day to keep the doctor away. And where does that come from? And drink milk for healthy bones, and it was the milk industry that lobbied to get children to have milk at school, and so where do these ideas of health come from? What are they influenced by? Do we want to look at different people's views on health and see how they're more holistic, and look at the actual science and evidence and see what is it telling us now, and is it helpful for us to view health in that way, and not question things, and not be like, what the fuck even is health? Like, huh? What is going on? And why are we so single-mindedly in the pursuit of this narrow definition of health when it damages our mental well-being and other maybe physical aspects of health? The current definition we have of health isn't leading us to be as healthful, whatever the fuck health means, as we could potentially be, And I mean, is it helpful to we can stick with this, we can stick with our health, the way that we view health, the way that we understand health. We can stick with that. If that's working for you and it feels good for you, then do it. I don't think it's going to be the reality of what we believe health to be, in the future. I think it's going to become more nuanced because we're going to have collective understandings that will change with new knowledge and information. But I mean, if it works for you, go for it. But I think it probably will help a lot of people to expand their understanding of what health could look like, and can I even be healthy? What does it mean if I'm not healthy? What does it mean if I'm not able-bodied? What does it mean if I value able-bodied people over disabled people? What does that mean for me and my own well-being? What does it mean for me as I age? What does it mean for me now that I am temporarily able-bodied, when if I'm lucky enough, I will get old enough and will need to have assistance and mobility aids, and does that mean then I am a worthless person because I'm older? If I adhere to this idea of what health is and what human bodies are valuable, then that's not going to help me as my health changes if I'm lucky enough to live longer, you know? So I just don't think that it's helpful for us, for all of us collectively and individually, to not think about this in a more nuanced way. And again, like I started the show with what I was talking about, health being a social justice issue. A lot of what would help people be more, quote, healthy is ending racism and sexism and stigmatization and marginalization of different people, and paying people more, giving people more vacation days, free healthcare, gun control, right? That is things that we can control, you know, and even if, you know, the idea that even if we did do those things, you know, say if magic happens and we live in a utopian society, health still might not be attainable for many people, right? And so it's kind of like there is no train that we can get on with certain sets of luggage and arrive at healthy. You might do that and the train may never leave the station. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're less than, or that people who are able-bodied, quote, healthy, whatever the fuck it means, are better. Although society today gives us a different message, but the reality is that's not true. Okay, I'm gonna leave it here for today. Yeah, I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I want to remind you to stay fierce, fatty, and I will see you in a while, alligator. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fat phobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.